Well, it's a privilege to have Christine Kinart with us. Christine,
Hi.
thank you for joining us. We met in my kitchen.
Yes, we did.
I knew the day I met you, I'm like, I'm going to get to know this girl. Christine's a wife, a mom. We're going to get to your mom's story. You're a missionary.
Yes.
You were in real estate, though, right?
Yes.
I mean, what God does with our lives. Take us back how, your early years. Tell us a little bit about Christine.
Sure. So I grew up in remote Northern Ontario, Canada, in a small town called Wawa.
Wawa, all
Yes.
right.
I grew up in a family that did not know Jesus. I was taken to church intermittently as a kid.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about relationship with Christ, but I knew a couple of Bible stories.
Yeah.
The first memory that I actually have as a child is an uncle moving into our home and abusing me in one of the worst ways. And that was kind of the beginning where a seed was planted in me, where I began to feel that I was nothing and no one. Throughout elementary school, I was teased and bullied. I remember being spit on. And so that was kind of how my early years had begun.
Yeah, so that lie that you believed from a young girl, what was that?
That I was really nothing and no one, that I always fell short. I could never do anything to the high enough standard that was worth it, that had any value.
And you know, that is a lie that so many of us can get trapped in. And then as you get married and you want to have babies, and what happened then?
So I finally met my husband I was 21 years old. And at this point, I had actually really hardened myself. And so I threw myself into my career. I thought this will be what my identity is. I'm going to prove the world that I'm something, and I'm going to make something out of my life. But something was still missing. And so my husband and I decided after about 4 years of marriage, we wanted children, and we tried for a number of years. And I couldn't get pregnant. My health started to decline. And so then we decided that we would go and see a fertility doctor. He offered us some hope. He said, take these pills, and surely then you'll be pregnant. Took those pills, nothing happened. My health continued to decline. They said, okay, we'll do a surgery, and then surely you'll become pregnant. And that didn't work either. And then the doctor had said to me, by this point, we had been married 8 years. And the doctor had said to me after we did that surgery that not only did they find the problem, but actually they told me I had uterine cancer. And I was just 28 years old.
28 years old, infertility, uterine cancer.
Yeah.
You didn't know Jesus yet.
I didn't know Jesus.
So what happened to the cancer? What happened to, how did you find Jesus?
By this point, my mother had come to Christ. And so I was angry and so depressed. And my mother was saying to me, why don't you go to church? And I remember thinking, why would I go? I have a real life problem. How does somebody sharing some message up at a pulpit help me with my real life problem? But my mom, she kept praying for me. And she said, why don't you just go speak to a Christian counselor, somebody in their home? And so to get her off my back, I did agree to go.
Those praying mamas are dangerous.
Absolutely. But it was in this home that I actually heard for the very first time what it meant when Christ died on the cross and the power that his blood had. By this point, I'd actually been fighting cancer for 1 year. And I had been looking everywhere for other treatments, other doctors, looking for some hope that I could still be a mother and I would be cancer-free. And so actually it was in her home that she made the offer for me to receive Jesus. And I said, yes, Jesus, I believe you are the Son of God. You died for me. I need you. And so that's where I received Jesus.
And I understand there was a healing too.
Yes. So after I received Christ, she began to pray for me. And she prayed in the name of Jesus that cancer leave my body, that my body come in alignment with the will of God. And I was sitting in this rocking chair, and it was like something threw gasoline and a match at my feet. And this fire started from my feet and literally took over my entire body. And the more she prayed, the hotter this fire burned. And when she was done praying, she said to me, yeah, I think you're healed.
Wow, and you're thinking, what?
I actually remember thinking, I think you're crazy. And not because I didn't feel anything, but because I had never heard that God heals. And so I didn't say anything. She didn't ask me if I felt anything, only said to me, I believe that you're healed.
Wow. And so on that faith, whether you believed it or not, you walked it out and God healed you.
Right.
God also gave you children. Tell us the miracle. So you've experienced a miracle, first of all, salvation. Best miracle ever.
Right.
The physical healing of cancer, and then these miracle babies.
Well, actually what happened was I didn't believe that I was healed. And so I went home, and about 2 weeks later, my oncologist called me and said there was nothing that he could do for me. It was time that he needed to remove my uterus and my ovaries. And I begged him to leave my ovaries, just take my uterus. But by this point, they were sure the cancer had spread through my body.
Yeah.
And so in December 2009, I went and had a hysterectomy, and I had my uterus removed from my body.
Wow.
And I had to agree at that point to have a second surgery once they discovered how bad it was going to be.
Yeah.
About 6 weeks after my hysterectomy, the doctor asked me to come back in to get the results. And I was sitting in this doctor's office with my husband, and the doctor came into the room, and he had this really sad look on his face. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, he's going to tell me I'm about to die. And he said to me, I don't know how to tell you this, so I'm just going to read the report. And he began to read, no cancer found, normal uterus. So I remembered the fire, and I remember thinking, like, God, why would you heal me and still allow me to have the surgery? Nothing good can come from this situation.
Oh.
It's still hopeless.
Yeah.
But the problem is I didn't know who God really was.
Yeah.
So I went through weeks and months really of depression and anger, and then just got so tired of feeling that way. And I just wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
So my husband and I started going down the road of adoption.
Yeah.
And we got the information of a 9-year-old girl who had an incredibly sad story. At 2, she was taken from her mom because her mom was a drug addict.
Yeah.
And custody was given to the grandparents. But what the government didn't know was that the grandparents were also drug addicts.
Wow.
And at just 9 years old, she had actually witnessed her biological uncle die of a drug overdose.
Oh, wow.
And by the time we got her information, she had been in foster care for a year.
Yeah.
So we agreed to adopt her.
Wow.
And the day that we had told them, yes, we want to go forward with her, they called me and told me that her biological mom was pregnant and in labor, and asked us if we first take the baby.
Wow.
And so I said yes. I was crying. They said, you need to hang on because the baby is going to be born incredibly sick. The mother has used drugs the entire pregnancy and has had no prenatal care.
Right. But you're believing in the healing of God now.
Well,
you're a different person now.
I'm definitely a different person.
Yeah.
Definitely. And when the baby was born, they actually measured her head, and her head measured just the 5th percentile, which meant that there was significant brain damage. They told us she'll probably never walk, never talk, never read, never write. And I remember thinking, well, if God can heal cancer, can he heal this baby? And it was just amazing. So every 2 weeks, we had to bring her back to the doctor. Her head would measure just the 5th percentile. At 2 weeks, 1 month, 1.5 months, they told us again and again and again. 2.5 months, same thing. But this time when we brought her home, we started praying over her and prayed in the name of Jesus that she be healed, that she not pay for the actions of her biological mother. And I brought her back to the hospital 2 weeks later for her 3-month appointment, and the doctor measured her head. And in just those 2 weeks, her head circumference had gone from the 5th percentile to the 50th, perfectly normal.
Wow.
She began to roll over, crawl, walk, talk.
Man.
Today she's 9. She's a competitive gymnast.
Oh, I
God
love what God
completely
does.
healed her. Yeah.
Well, you know, and just hearing your story, and I know there's more to it, but look at what God does in breaking that lie that you weren't worth it. And now, just, you know, quickly as we wrap up here, you're a missionary. You're out in Nicaragua and the Panama, and you're church planning, and you're speaking. Like, who would have thought, right?
Not me.
Right?
I felt like I was nothing and no one. And for 4 years, I didn't share any of my story with anyone. I didn't realize what God had done for me. And it wasn't just for me. It was so I could go and tell others, because our story, the fight that we fought wasn't just for me, so we can point other people to Jesus.
Yes, that's
and so
it.
God took me into the streets, and I started sharing my testimony and sharing Jesus with other people. And I ended up in the jungles, planting churches, teaching people how to share the gospel, and teaching people that it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what lies you've been told. God is still God, and he heals today, and he can use anybody.
That's it. You heard it today. This is what God does. He's good. He heals. If you need encouragement today, give us a call. Thank you, Christine, for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
Well, now the fittest man in the world owes all of his success to a fall. This is Rich's story. Thank you so much. Oh, my